Greetings. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the book report. Lexington, Virginia. It's a nice little town, lots of interesting things to see. It's home to the Virginia Military Institute, Washington Lee University, as well as the graves of Confederate General Robert E. Lee and his horse, which he rode throughout that terrible conflict that ripped the nation apart a century and a half ago. I'm speaking, of course, of Traveler, Lee's faithful horse he rode throughout the Civil War until the general passed away in 1870. Traveler died a year later. If only animals could speak to tell their tales. Well, thanks to a very creative English author, Traveler has been able to tell his. I'm speaking, of course, of the novel Traveler by Richard Adams, the English author who wrote that real classic book, Watership Down. It was published in 1988. It's a great summertime read, especially if you want something light, something interesting, and you're into Civil War history. The story begins with Traveler talking to a cat in a stable. It's probably the stable at Washington Lee University at that time. And he's recanting his whole life to this cat. Mr. Adams was able to bring animals to life. He was a real live Dr. Dolittle, I think, but Traveler talks about the whole time he was with the general, from the time he was born to the time the general found him, to all the battles they went to, and he also talks about all the other horses he got to know during the Civil War. Of course, Traveler didn't really understand exactly what was going on, but it is a beautifully written story about a well-known horse that Robert E. Lee rode to just about every battle he was ever in. In fact, Traveler was just about as famous as the general was. It's a fun book, and it does put a very interesting spin on history. The thing I find fascinating is Mr. Adams was able to write such a real good book, and he was from England. I don't know if he ever traveled to the United States. I imagine he did, but the research he must have had to do was quite phenomenal. I mean, I don't know the names of all these horses that were ridden by other generals and other famous soldiers in the Civil War, but he was able to find that out. That must have taken some work. And he also had a pretty good command of that whole conflict. Sadly, it's no longer available in print. It was put out by Alfred A. Knopf. I think that's the way you pronounce it. That's part of Knopf Doubleday Publishing Group, and it hasn't been in print for some time. It's available, though, on Kindle, and I would recommend it in that format because, well, you can get the used paperbacks for $10, $15, $20 if you want, but, well, you want something that's a bit fresh. You can also get used hardcovers that go from anywhere from $30 to $50 or more. Now, I'm going to have to bring politics into this because I'm personally suspicious that this book is not available in print form because it's politically incorrect to put any positive spin on anything that had to do with the Confederacy during the Civil War. I mean, this is a story of a horse, a very famous horse, the most famous horse in the Civil War. And if you consider how many horses died in that conflict, which I remember reading was somewhere in the millions. I mean, look, a horse on a battlefield with cannonballs and musket balls flying, that's a pretty high attrition rate there. I never heard of a horse that was able to shoot back. So it could be taken as a very nice memorial to all the horses that died in that conflict. But no, we can't have that these days. And that's because of recent history involving Traveler. There's a grave just outside the chapel where Robert E. Lee is buried. It's where Traveler is buried. And until a couple of years ago, there was a nice little tombstone there, and it was a common thing for students to leave apples on the grave. There were a lot of fun customs there involving Traveler, but no, apparently it was racist. So they removed the tombstone. I haven't been able to find if there was a replacement. It's something that's not been in the news for a couple of years, and calling up the university and inquiring about it is not something I had the time to do. But the fact that you would have the University of Washington Lee taking out the frustration of slavery and the Civil War on the grave of a horse is, well, just pretty much nuts. And I'm not going to go further into that, but I'd like to point something out, that no civilization can survive such self-inflicted brain damage. Horses have been part of human civilization for many thousands of years. They were our companions. They were our main mode of transportation until only about a century ago. But if you take away all the modern-day insanity about taking out frustrations on a grave of a horse, it's a delightful book. Watership Down, of course, is another fantastic book. It's what made Richard Adams so famous and so successful. He was a very prolific author, though, wrote many good novels, and I've only read a couple of them, but they're all good. Traveler is my favorite. It's actually more of my favorite than Watership Down. I would recommend it. It's summertime reading, and if you're going to be traveling throughout Virginia, visiting Civil War battlefields, it's a great companion to have around. But I have to warn you, at the end of the book, it's a real tearjerker, whether you like horses or not. Again, the book is Traveler. It's a novel, a narrative of the horse ridden by Robert E. Lee in the Civil War by Richard Adams. It was originally published in 1988. It was published by several places around the world, but in the United States it was Alfred A. Knopf, part of the Knopf Doubleday Publishing Group. It's currently, though, only available in Kindle. Maybe a write-in campaign to the publisher to get them to come up with it again would be a real good idea. Enjoy it. It's a good summertime read. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies whether or not they like horses. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, keep reading and never judge a book by its movie. Good day.